Welcome to the No Regrets Leadership Podcast, where leaders are empowered to equip and disciple men.
Well, I'd like to welcome you to the No Regrets Leadership Podcast. My name is Steve Sonderman, and I'll be your host for today. Each week, we are talking with a speaker, author, or key thought leader in the area of ministry to men. Today, our special guest is Craig Glass, and I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you, Steve. I'm glad to be here.
Well, you know what? Why don't you just take a few minutes and just tell us a little bit about yourself, about your ministry, and what's been getting you excited these days?
Yeah, sure. About myself, I'm originally from the Chicago area and moved out to Colorado about 20 years ago. Married for 46 years with the most wonderful woman in my life. I've got 3 kids and 2 in-law kids, daughter-in-law, son-in-law, and 6 grandkids. All of the grandkids still live in the Chicago area, so we get out there as often as we can to enjoy them.
Well, that's great. We're at 4 grandkids, but we have 2 on the way, so we'll be catching you.
You'll catch up. Yeah, and, I think we've hit the limit. I don't see anybody having any more at this point.
Yeah, and like you, we don't have any here in the Milwaukee area. They're all over the country, and so we've got to, if we want to see them, we got to go to them.
Yes,
just like yourself.
Right. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your ministry and what you've been doing the last number of years.
Yeah, well, I've been in vocational ministry. I'll use that term. I think most people know what I mean. For 46 years, essentially right out of college. Went with a mission agency with my wife, a group called International Teams based in Chicago. We decided, let's take 1 year to do a missions adventure and then get on with the rest of our life and be normal people. That 1 year, in 1976, we smuggled Bibles behind the Iron Curtain, and it changed everything. And so we spent 5 years over there in Vienna, Austria, doing that, and then another 15 years leading and guiding and pastoring missionaries. But it was during that time that I really stumbled across, Steve, what I discovered was my calling to do ministry with men. I believed in missions. I supported it. I had wonderful opportunities to do it. But I just have to say, at a certain point, I realized, as good as this is, there's more in me than this. And I need to find out what that is. And over time discovered, I believe passionately in the value and significance and impact of men for either choices of destruction and harm or for blessing and safety. I just believe passionately about that. And so and now 27 years ago, I made that dramatic change in career and went after ministry to men. And in the last 20 years, I've led a ministry here in Colorado Springs, Colorado, called Peregrine Ministries, where I guide and inspire men on their life journey to help them pass on a life-giving legacy.
So, Craig, you mentioned that you were involved with the mission agency, that there was a time when you just really sensed God calling you to ministry to men. Can you just sort of unpack that for us a little bit, how that happened and how that came about in your life?
Yes. Yeah. It's a little bit, Steve, like taking the cork out of the bottle for me. So you tell me to stop talking if you want to, but that's a great question. And it's a critical question for me. What happened was a couple of incidents in my experience working with the mission agency and my experience at that time as a young father. In the mission agency, we would do the best job we could in training and supervising and sending healthy, qualified missionaries around the world. But as all mission agencies experienced, there were people who failed and failed badly, often morally or ethically, but more often than not, than any one thing, conflict with other people on their team. And so we tried to figure out what's going on with these people that results in explosive conflict on their team, or frankly, men going and having affairs, or women going having affairs with people in Jamaica while they're on the team. And again, I just have to say, this was not unique to the agency I was with. It was common around the world with people who are in cross-cultural ministry experiences. The enemy goes after you. But one of the things we discovered was, for those who clearly, in the process of pre-field training, had issues of woundedness and unhealed damage in their life story, and it was coming out in their relationships with other people. For those who had that, and we worked with Christian counselors at Wheaton Graduate School to help do this process, we came across an unmissable piece of truth. Almost always. I'll use the figure 96.8% of the time. Almost always. If you want to know what the core center of the damage, an unhealed wound for that young woman or that married guy, what the damage was, it went back to their father. Mm-hmm. You peel away the layers of the onion of the story, you're going to get to the father. Almost always. Mm-hmm. Nearly 100% of the time. And it smacked me in the face, in the eyes, personally. What is my impact as a father? I had 3 young kids at that time. Yeah. What am I laying in the laps of my children that's causing harm and woundedness and damage that actually is my problem, is my woundedness, my impatience, my perfectionism, my performance orientation? I could make a long list. What is it that I'm passing on and harming my own children with that honestly is more my issue that has not been healed? It smacked me in the face. I couldn't deny it. And so that was one of the primary turning points, Steve, and the answer to your question, gee, how did this happen? It was a almost a Damascus Road experience for me, where suddenly the impact and the brilliance of truth hit me like never before. And I first started to want to make changes in me. And then I realized I want to see changes in other men. Mm-hmm. I want to see changes in this society. And one of the primary places to do it is to see transformation in the hearts for men, as a man who's self-absorbed, mm-hmm. to a man who is other-focused and centered.
That is so powerful, and how just for you to come to that realization in your own life, but then also in those that you're working with. And I would just completely agree. I think every man is wounded, and to truly experience the life of Christ in their life, they have to allow Christ to bring healing to the core of who they are. Absolutely. And that's part of our calling is those who are working with men, is to help men move to that place. And it's not always easy, is it?
No, it's not. In fact, no, it's not easy. It's not easy personally for us to look in the mirror honestly and truthfully. That's hard. That's frightening. And it's certainly not easy going after other men and helping them to do the same thing. Most men are not looking for a guy in their life to say, hey, would you like to know the truth about you? Are you aware of how you come across?
Right. Exactly. Ministry to men is tough. And since we're on that topic, just for a second here, I want to just take a little right turn here. And that is, you've been involved in ministry to men a long time. Yeah. And it's hard because sometimes you feel like you're the only guy out there doing it. You're having these hard conversations with men. You're walking with men through the hard and messy times. What keeps you going? How do you just keep going in ministry to men?
Yeah, boy. I say to people periodically, sorry, this is a bit of a roundabout answer, Steve, but I think it might be important. I say to people periodically, if you want to pursue a calling in which you will regularly encounter resistance or disappointment or depletion, just go ahead and decide to go after the hearts of men. Just go ahead and do that one.
Mm-hmm.
And you will experience all of those. And I know you have. And I believe anyone who's listening or watching right now who has had any influence in trying to mentor, disciple, speak to, teach, guide men will say, holy cow, is that right? And so to get to the core of your answer, what encourages me to keep going? It matters that much. Men matter that much. You might be familiar, and the people listening might be familiar with a radio personality commentator named Dennis Prager, a Jewish man who's extremely insightful, terrifically insightful. I hear him periodically. But the day after the shooting years ago in Connecticut, of the school where 20 kids and 2 teachers, I think it was, were killed. The day after that, I heard him on the radio and he made this statement. The most important question for any society to answer is, how do we make good men? And when I heard that, my first reaction was, well, wait a minute, that sounds very gender-based, sounds very patriarchal, sounds a little bit egotistical for us guys. And as I thought it through, I realized, you know what, he's right. It's not patriarchal, it's not egotistical, it's an indictment. It's an indictment that men so often, almost virtually always, if you read the news, if you go online, if you look at a headline, and it's going to involve violence, shooting 10 people at a grocery store, stabbing 10 people at a dance hall or a dance club, or shooting 20 kids in a high school, whatever it is, if it involves violence, you're going to see a man. A man is in the center of the story. A man's behind the weapon. It's an indictment. But here's the good news. I believe that the capacity for men to have that kind of impact on society for destruction and harm and violence is countered by an equal and opposite opportunity to bring, as I said a few minutes ago, blessing, security, safety, anointing, all of those things. It matters that much. That's why I do it, Steve. I know, even without asking you, I know that's why you do it. It matters that much.
Yeah, as difficult and as horrific as the situations are in our society, the gospel of Jesus is greater. And we have the opportunity to speak gospel life into the lives of men. Yeah. And that's why we're having these conversations. And so let's transition to that right now. Let's get on the solution side of things. Sure. And say, you what are some principles you have learned to effectively minister to men over these years?
Yeah. It's such a good one. It's so crucial. Men are a lot like what I used to be like. I grew up in the church from day one, and including Wednesdays and Sunday evenings, maybe like you. What I learned, unfortunately, as a Christian kid was present the good and the impressive, be the performer, hide the bad or hide what's weak. And certainly, above all else, hide the shameful. Mm-hmm. Whether it's lying or stealing or looking at pornography or whatever it is, go ahead and fill in the list. Hide the bad, present the good. That works for a while. And depending on conviction and effort and motivation, some men do pretty well with that for a while. I would say I did for a matter of time. But eventually, the true story of what's going on in the center of the heart, the true story of challenge and temptation and failure, or getting fired or having a divorce, or your kids won't talk to you, whatever it is, it catches up.
Mm-hmm.
And sooner or later, we have to start telling the truth to somebody. That, to me, is the core seed of effectiveness in men's ministry. Tell the truth to somebody and be a guy that others can tell the truth to.
Amen. Listen up. Time spent in fellowship, prayer, and study with other guys is absolutely crucial in this day and age. But trust me, I know how overwhelming it can be to start, maintain, or multiply men's small groups. So No Regrets is here to help you. We have developed some new digital content called Basecamp, Bible Studies for Men. All the studies are found on our website at menwithnoregrets.org under Discipleship Resources. The optimal place for you to grow is a men's small group, and we are here to provide your group with the content you need.
1 John 1:7, walk in the light as he is in the light. I take that to be walk in God's light, his truth, but also walk openly, shed light into the dark corners of our life with the right men. Walk in the light as he is in the light, and you'll have fellowship with one another, not judgment or condemnation. You'll have fellowship. You'll connect with each other. And secondly, the blood of Christ will continue to transform you. My goodness. Wow. What a formula. Mm-hmm. Just tell the truth, be authentic, be honest, and be one with whom others can tell the truth, and they know they're not going to receive judgment or condemnation or shame. They may receive truth, but it'll be immersed in grace. That to me, I would have to say, Steve, that's what I learned personally as the thing that helped me want to be in a men's group or be step in front of other men and say, hey, follow me because I'm doing this. Words like authenticity or vulnerability. It's so important. We're done. Men are done following some guy who just does a superficially good job of self-promotion. Mm-hmm. And sooner or later, you discover the guy's a sham. Mm-hmm. There's plenty of them.
Yeah.
Goodness sake, there's plenty of them around. What we want is somebody who's genuine and honest and truthful, both in sharing the dark side of life, the struggles, the difficulties, the failures, and the hope and the grace and the calling. This is where I'm heading. Hey, would you like to be a part of the journey with me? Because this is where I would like to head, and I need you.
Yeah, I think guys are just dying to find that. They can spot the poser, the faker very, very quickly. I think especially younger men.
Yeah, that's right.
And
they sniff it out.
Yeah, they really do, and they can do it pretty quickly. And like you said, they're looking for someone that can just be open and vulnerable with their life. And the great thing about that is that anyone can do that.
Yeah,
you don't need a degree to be open and vulnerable with your life.
Yeah,
right? You just have to have the courage to open it up and allow others in.
And there you go. By the way, you said it exactly. Listeners are probably familiar with Brené Brown, that author. She says the greatest sign of courage in our culture today is vulnerability. Mm-hmm. And it is, especially for men. Goodness sake, it takes courage to say, I'm vulnerable. In this area, I'm weak. In fact, I'm not only weak, I consistently fail.
Right. Yeah. And what guys are going to discover in the conversation, I've heard so many guys say this, they say, you too?
Yeah.
They think they're the only ones struggling with the anger issue or the pride issue or the lust issue or the whatever issue. Yes. And all of a sudden they get with another guy, having coffee together or, small group together, and they're amazed. They think they're alone, but they're not.
Yeah. They thought they were the only one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It is so helpful to learn I'm not the only guy.
Mm-hmm.
There's others like me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so helpful.
Yeah, it really is. You know, you wrote a great book, The Noble Journey.
Yeah.
And in it, you talk about leaving a legacy. And I loved what you did with it. And I recommend to our listeners to pick it up and to read it. But why don't you just, for our listeners, just give them a little sneak peek into what it is, as far as what does it mean to leave a legacy, and where do the guys listening start to do that?
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Thanks for asking. First of all, of course I chose that title on purpose. First of all, I think we're on a journey. We are on a powerful pilgrimage. In fact, I'd like to use the phrase, we're on a physical journey with a spiritual destination. I did not come up with that phrase, but I love it. We are, every day of our lives is a physical journey. There's a spiritual destination, and certainly our life is about that. It's a journey, and the word noble just speaks to me. It grabs me. It speaks to me of not elite power and status. No, not that definition. The definition that says integrity, consistency, courage, faithfulness, self-sacrifice. That definition of noble. That pulls me, and I believe it pulls all of us as men. We want to be that kind of guy. And so you asked about the term legacy. The subtitle of the book is The Quest for a Life-Giving Legacy. Mm-hmm. Legacy, we normally hear that term as far as what we pass on to our kids and the next generation, as far as inheritance, the money, if we have any, what's left of the house, property, whatever. Okay, that's fine. No, that's not what we're here again. This is a different definition of legacy. Your fingerprint in the lives of other people. The story about you that other people will tell when you're gone. That's your legacy. How did you touch other people's lives? And again, was it primarily one that was self-absorbed and self-centered, or was it one that honored and blessed others? That is, I think, also a core message and value that God knit in the hearts of all men. It's in there somewhere. It's deep in there. I think God gave it. He wrote it on the heart to pass on a life-giving legacy. I want to make sure that when I'm gone, there's life that gets passed on. That's what most men believe. That's what the book is about. The core part of the book.
Yeah. Well, I recommend it. I love that phrase. The stories others will tell when you are gone. Boy, that just boom encapsulates exactly, I think, what you're talking about. And So okay, so where does a guy start? Okay, I want to do that. That sounds great. What are some places for the guy to start to move in that direction?
Well, I would speak generically. First of all, I'll take it that way, Steve. Find some guy. Find some guy. Find some men. Find some pastor. Find somebody. Just find one guy that you suspect is, first of all, a Christ follower. He's got the same values and the same belief and faith as you. Not a guy who's just simply immersed in the world like the rest of the crowd. A guy who stands out. And you want to walk the way he's walking. You got a feeling you're on the same journey. Find that guy and start deciding things like, would it be okay if we're brothers on this journey? That periodically we get together with each other, whether it's once a week or once a month or whatever it is. Periodically, we meet for lunch for 45 minutes or an hour and a half, whatever it is, and talk about what's going on for me right now. And a great way to do this, in the Bible, Jesus was asked, what's the most important commandment for us to follow? Love the Lord your God with all of your heart, your soul, your mind, and your strength. my opinion is when Jesus said that, he defined everything about how mankind, women and men, are made. Heart, emotions, soul, your spirit, mind, your intellect, strength, your body, your physicality. A great way to start is to just say to each other, tell me about your heart this week. How is your heart this week? How about you and God? What's that spiritual component? What's going on there? Any concerns physically? That's a simple first way to start. Revealing with one another in a courageous and trusting way the deeper part of the story that's happening for each one of us. That's one of the things I would say, Steve, is find a guy, for goodness sake. And maybe there's a group of men, maybe at church, there's something going on, or maybe at work, there's 4 guys here. There's 4 guys. I know they're believers. I know it. How about once a week we get together for lunch? Whatever it is, find somebody, find your community. And my experience, both for me personally, and in working with men for a long time, guys who come out of church settings, my experience is that, unfortunately, a lot of guys feel like church is the last place you're going to tell the truth. It is the last place because I can't trust them.
Yeah.
They're going to throw it back at me. They're going to throw a verse at me. They're going to preach at me. They're going to condemn me. They're going to shame me. Find the place that's filled with both truth and grace, both love and courage. Both those things. Find that place and find those men. That would be one of the first answers to your question. I think maybe a second level that you might be asking me is in terms of Peregrine Ministries. People could check out our website. The name of the organization is Peregrine, which is a kind of falcon, a raptor, mates for life, defends the nest, blows threatening birds out of the air. I like all of those qualities. But why I chose it is in Latin, it means pilgrim. Peregrinus, pilgrim. A man on a physical journey with a spiritual destination. So our organization is Peregrine Ministries. The website is peregrineministries.org. People can find the book Noble Journey, as well as another book I wrote called Passage to Manhood for fathers of teenage sons to guide them in a spiritual rite of passage with other fathers and sons. Those are available at Amazon as well as on our website.
Well, and that's good. I will. You answered it before I asked it, which I love. And what we will do, just so the listeners know, we'll put all those resources in the show notes, and in that way, when you can go there right after you're done today, and there'll be links to the website, to the books, and I recommend both those for you as far as a follow-up. And well, I love the fact that you just talked about this idea of just finding one guy or finding a couple of guys at work or at the club, wherever it might be. And just starting with that verse where I just think I'm just talking out loud here and thinking about it. But if as a group you sat down and just read that passage where Jesus says, love the Lord your God and to love others, and you said, how are we doing on this week? You're going to have a great conversation, right? I mean,
it's so simple and it's profound. You can have a great, I have had great conversations with guys just asking those 4 things.
Yeah, I love it. That is a simple format for any group, for a couple of guys getting together and say, hey, let's sharpen each other.
Yes.
Let's try to pull each other to the noble things in life, like you talked about, and become the men that God truly wants us to be. So, well, listen, this has been fabulous. Unfortunately, we are already out of time. I told you ahead of time this was going to go fast, and it goes fast.
Yeah, it goes fast.
It does, but I am just so grateful for you, for your ministry,
thank you, Steve.
and your years of investing in men. So thank you.
Thank you for the same. Well done, and thank you for inviting me to be a partner with you today.
Well, and I want to thank our listeners. Glad you're with us today, and hope you've been encouraged by the conversation that we have had together. And just a reminder, if this has been helpful to you, you might want to just share it with someone else. Send it out to the other leaders that you're working with in your church or organization. Write a review for us, and we'd really appreciate it. So, looking forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you for joining the No Regrets Leadership Podcast. For more information and to access past recordings, please visit www.menwithnoregrets.org/podcast.